Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Vivian Labaton, and I'm the co-chair with Pramila Jayapal of We Belong Together. We Belong Together is a campaign that's engaging women from across the country to support common sense immigration reform that treats women fairly. We work to highlight the unique experiences and contributions of immigrant women and to ensure that all women come together to push for immigration reform that recognizes the values and the needs and the contribution of immigrant women and their families. First, I'd like to introduce my fellow co-chair of the We Belong Together, Pramila. Pramila is an activist, author, and speaker with more than 20 years of experience fighting for social justice and immigrant rights.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm a very proud immigrant from India and a co-chair with Vivian Labaton of We Belong Together. We Belong Together is really a national campaign that's lifting up women's voices, women's priorities across the country. And we've done that both working with our fearless champions in the House and the Senate, with countless women across the country, and most recently, over the last 2 months, with women, over 200 women who have actually participated in civil disobedience actions across the country, been arrested to cause us to really look at the human toll of this issue on families and women and children across the country. Thanks to the leadership of women like Senator Mazie Hirono, who you'll hear from very shortly, we were able to ensure that the Senate bill actually has provisions that include women more than any other previous immigration reform bill. And that bill passed the Senate, as you know, at the beginning of the summer in one of the most bipartisan votes that we've seen to date. And yet, the House has yet to take action. We have our champions, as you'll hear from, in the House as well, but the Republican leadership in the House has not moved forward the issue, and we're here to demand that people in the House understand that a vote against immigration reform, inaction on this issue, are really a vote against women, children, and families. Even though immigration reform is too often not spoken about as a women's issue in the mainstream debate, the reality is that women are the face of immigration reform. Women and children make up about 3/4 of all immigrants to the United States, and about half of all the undocumented women in the country are, about half of all the undocumented immigrants in the country are women. We all work hard. We support our families, we contribute to our communities, and we struggle for reform while bearing the brunt of the failures of our current immigration system. And I just wanted to mention a few of the ways in which the immigration reform, the immigration policy that we have right now is really stacked against women and families. First of all, you may not know that only 1 in 3 work visas go to women. And this is because we've really prioritized in this country industries that are populated by men, not necessarily industries that this country needs the labor of the most, because when you look at domestic care and elder care and all the different ways in which women contribute, those industries need labor, talented, skilled labor that are provided by women. Because there aren't many opportunities for women to come in, about 70% of women, immigrant women who do have legal status get it through the family immigration system. They're sponsored by a family member. And that system has about 4.5 million people that are waiting in what we call a backlog. That family immigration system has been the heart of what the United States has valued for so long, and it has been the way in which women come to the country. But these backlogs and the changes that are proposed to the family immigration system are going to disproportionately burden women. We know that, and we'll hear about the ways in which women's work is not valued. Domestic workers who don't get pay stubs and are working in a paperless economy in previous reform bills would have been left out. Thanks to Senator Hirono and other women in the Senate, we have a provision that allows for those women to be able to get other ways to show their proof of employment so that they can qualify for a legalization status. Women across the country are breaking the silence. We're showing that immigration reform is a matter of heart. We know that political leadership comes and goes. We know that it rises and falls, but what will continue to endure is the drive for heartfelt change that allows women and families to lead better lives. We hope that the House uses these last days of this session to move forward an immigration reform bill that is inclusive of women and children and families. We can't wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. I have the best job here today, introducing all of these incredible women. Now it's my honor to introduce Gloria Steinem, author, journalist, and extraordinary feminist leader. She's been at the forefront of the movement for women's rights and social justice for more than 4 decades. Her unparalleled contributions to this country will be recognized tomorrow as she receives the Presidential Medal of Freedom, this nation's highest civilian honor.
I'm here today as a member of the media, a writer. My lifetime work has been being a writer and also part of the women's movement, to make a plea to those of you who are reporters to help correct the inaccurate image of immigration in the media. There is an idea somehow that women's issues are over here and immigrant issues are over there. And as you have just heard, the truth of the matter is that 3/4 of the undocumented immigrants are women and children. When the image in the media is a potential terrorist or a potential drug dealer or at best a male farm worker, it is an unrealistic portrayal of who immigrants really are. And we just have to see to it ourselves and in our news organizations, on our blogs, whatever our source of communication is, that we are more accurate about who immigrants really are. And in addition to that, about what this nation really needs as a workforce. Because as you have heard, there is an idea that high-tech jobs, which are culturally speaking still dominated by males, are more what this country needs than caregiving jobs, which are culturally speaking, not forever we hope, but culturally speaking still dominated by females, that the high-tech is more important than the caregiving. This is really not true. We live in a prosperous country, and consequently we have a long life expectancy, and we very much need caregiving work more than we need high-tech work. All right. So in the interests of accuracy, in the interests of supplying the expertise, the labor that this society really needs, I hope that we can together reflect reality in what we write. And as the oldest person in the room, I also just want to say that this struggle has been going on for a very, very long time. And it's, in my memory, since the early 70s, you know, we have been making up lists of household workers' rights, of immigrant rights, of, you know, trying to, well, I mean, trust me, it's been going on for a long time. So also it's good it's good to do some research now that we have Google, right? And understand that this fact of life, which is that immigrants are mostly women and children, and what our needs are in the society, that wasn't just born yesterday, right? It has a very, very long and deep tradition. And the big difference is that now we have great champions, as like the senator, the people you are about to hear from, who are speaking the truth not only as journalists and as media, but as legislators, which is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Senator Mazie Hirono. Senator Hirono represents the state of Hawaii as its first female senator and the first Asian American woman senator and the first immigrant woman to serve in the U.S. Senate. She has been a fantastic champion of women and immigrants in the Senate, and she's played a leading role in ensuring the Senate immigration reform bill reflected the needs of women and families. Senator Hirono.
Thank you very much, Vivian and Pramila, for bringing all of us together, because we are in this together. We started off this Congress with high hopes for sane, humane immigration reform. And that is because there's recognition by Republicans, Democrats, that this very complicated immigration system we have is broken. So the Senate passed an immigration bill, and this focus that we have here on immigration is a women's issue could not be more accurate, because, as you heard, the majority of the undocumented people in our country are women. The majority of people who are waiting to come into our country under the legal immigration system are women. The Senate bill that we passed inadvertently disadvantages women. So immigration is a women's issue. And when we mobilize the women of this country and everyone else to understand that to be against sane, humane immigration reform is to be against the women in this country and against the children and families in this country, I think then maybe we begin to rattle some cages. And that is what we're here to do. Now, the immigration reform bill that we passed in the Senate, the Gang of Eight, sadly, not a single person in the Gang of Eight was a woman, because if there had been a woman there, I think that there would have been recognition that the new immigration system inadvertently disadvantages women by putting so much emphasis on the kind of education attainment that new immigrants should have, the kind of work experiences, mainly in the high-skilled areas, that the new immigrants should have, would disadvantage women. I think that recognition would have been there. But, you know, we go from where we are, we try to improve things, and I think the education parts of it to connect up the issue of comprehensive immigration reform as one that particularly is important to women in our country, I think that is a very powerful message. And I am going to work very hard to make sure that this issue that started off so hopefully is not forgotten in the garbage heap of the shutdown and the other kinds of sequester and everything else that cost our families so much going through. And I started off in talking about immigration reform in the Senate, saying we must not forget that immigration is about families. And the Senate immigration bill basically does not support families the way immigrants have always relied on families for their success. So even as we're saying to all these STEM people and high-tech experienced people, come on in and stay, or come and help improve our economy, all those folks have families. And families continue to be an important part of any immigrant's success. And I know this from my own experience being an immigrant myself. So we are sisters and brothers together, and we are going to work hard to make sure that immigration reform is not forgotten, not by a long shot, but it is up to us to make sure that doesn't happen. Aloha.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Lucille Roybal-Allard, who serves California's 40th District as the first Mexican-American woman elected to Congress. A longstanding champion for women and kids, she is an original co-author of the DREAM Act and is chair of the Women's Working Group on Immigration Reform in the House of Representatives, a bipartisan group fighting to move reform forward, for which we are all very appreciative.
Thank you very much. It's truly a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and I would like to thank We Belong Together for their kind invitation to be here, and actually for their strong, outstanding advocacy on behalf of immigrant women and women in general. And it's truly an honor to be here with Gloria Steinem, to whom I extend my sincere congratulations in being honored tomorrow with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. You know, as a contemporary of Gloria's generation, I am aware of what courage it took for her to be a visionary trailblazer for women. So thank you, Gloria, for your decades of principled leadership. Without a doubt, you are an icon who has done so much for the cause of women's equality. And I am thrilled that she is now lending her voice in the fight for comprehensive immigration reform, which must take into account, as you have been hearing, it must take into account the different and unique needs of immigrant women, including those who are forced to live in the shadows of our society. Our broken immigration system forces many of these women to remain in violent relationships. It exposes them to abuse in the workplace, and it separates many mothers from their children. Allowing this vulnerability to exist for any immigrant woman does not reflect our American values. Yet for far too long, the unique needs and valuable contributions made to our American society by these immigrant women has been ignored in the debate on immigration reform. Immigrant women run businesses and raise families. They care for our seniors and our children, and they make invaluable contributions to our communities and our country as professionals and as volunteers. Fixing our broken immigration system to address the needs of immigrant women will make an enormous difference, not only in their lives, but ultimately in the lives of all Americans who will benefit even more from their increased ability to excel and contribute to our society. Empowering immigrant women will also protect and elevate the status of all women in this country. Documented or undocumented, citizen or new immigrant, as long as discrimination exists against any group of women, all women will ultimately be vulnerable to that abuse. We can have no better ally than Gloria Steinem in our fight for fair and just immigration legislation. Her political and social leadership will be an effective tool in helping us to pass immigration reform legislation which reflects our American values, honors women's work, respects women's rights, and frees immigrant women to step out of the shadows and into the sunshine, to be more effective in their ability to help us to build a stronger economy and a more prosperous nation. So again, it's really an honor to be here, not only with Gloria, but everyone here who's on the dais, my colleague here, the senator, and I truly look forward to working with all of you and in the Congressional Women's Working Group on Immigration. And I truly believe that if we continue to work together and to help the public to understand that what we're talking about is not just about women, but actually putting a human face on the immigrant. Because right now the premise, if you hear from my Republican colleagues, they try to criminalize immigrants. They call them felons. They want them to actually be declared felons and make them go home. That's not what we're talking about. And as Gloria and others have said, that is not the face of the immigrant in this country. They're hard-working, dedicated individuals who love this country and want to come out of the shadows to contribute even more. And I look forward to working with all of you to make that a reality, to put the pressure on my Republican colleagues, the Republican leadership, so that we can at least get a vote on an immigration bill, because we are confident that if we get a vote in the House, it will pass.
Thank you. Now it's my honor to introduce Maria, a community leader with One America from Washington State. Maria is an undocumented immigrant who's worked in the U.S. for 16 years to provide a better life for her family, even though this has meant separation from her son. Maria is an outspoken activist and a leader in her community, including speaking before the Washington State Legislature.
For the first time, I want to say thank you because it's a big honor to me to stay with these big leaders. And as an immigrant, I want to, in the same way they inspire me, I want to inspire some morals to not be afraid, to make one step forward, to from being in the shadows, be in the light. Make something, don't leave our fears taken over us, because if we make the first step, leaving our country, our friends, our family, nobody can stop us to do the same for the immigration reform. We need it because we need to stop the violence against women. We need to stop the violence against our children. As they mentioned, the family is the first society for can be survived. If a country can be good, it's because a family is good. We need to stop all these things, and then we need to push all the politicians to pass the bill for the immigration reform. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I'd like to introduce Barbara Young, the national organizer for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Barbara has worked as a domestic worker for more than 17 years and is a naturalized immigrant from Barbados.
Thank you, Vivian, and thanks to all of you for being here. We need immigration reform. As an immigrant woman coming from Barbados to the U.S., I'm a naturalized citizen now, and I value that, and I would like to see it for all other immigrant people who are here laboring under extreme pressure. Not knowing if ICE is coming after them, not sure if the police in their area is working with ICE to report them. I remember a few years ago going out to Arizona and seeing the tears of children whose parents had been detained, and not because they had done anything wrong, but a sweep in their workplace picked them up, and children coming home from school and the parents are incarcerated and being held in custody for 3 months before they let them out, and neighbors looking after children. And I think that this is because of our broken immigration system here. And we need to fix it. We need to fix it. You hear all the remarks from other members on this panel, and it depends on us and how we see it. What side are we on when innocent people in this country can be rounded up like animals and take off to jail for going out to work? The main reason that they entered the country in the first place to make better for themselves and their families. And I say that we need to fix this immigration system. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'd now like to introduce Janet Murguia, President and CEO of the National Council of La Raza and a stalwart advocate for immigration reform and social justice.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivian and Pramila, for both of you for We Belong Together, organizing such a wonderful panel preceding this press conference, and of course, for organizing this press conference. It's hard not to be inspired as you look at the spectrum of women represented up here today. You have women who have led us in the heights of Congress to advocate for immigration reform, and women who are literally in the trenches, seeing the moral dimension of the failure to act on immigration reform played out amongst their families and their lives. All of us are touched by this issue as women, as people who see the impact of this lack of immigration reform day to day. And that moral dimension has been represented here in many different ways. I guess I would just like to add the support of the National Council La Raza, organization that is 45 years old and in the making, and has a record of impact in advocating not only for the Latino community, but for civil rights, and in particular for immigration reform. And I would just suggest that in addition to all the reasons that you've heard here already, the need to have immigration reform and looking at it through this gender lens and looking at immigration reform as also a women's issue, I would just like to say that as a Latina, as someone who represents the Hispanic community, and as someone who understands this issue as a woman, I would just say that the political dimension cannot be underscored enough. The fastest, most powerful voting blocs today are among Hispanic voters, Asian Pacific American voters, and yes, indeed, women voters. And I would call both political parties, but in particular those members in the Republican Party and the House of Representatives, to take a keen look at the political dimension on this issue and to understand fundamentally that our groups do vote, and we will hold accountable those who have been a barrier to immigration reform. And if there are parties that want to see themselves as viable for national office, the White House, or any type of office, I encourage them to understand that we care about this issue and we will hold individuals accountable, we will hold parties accountable. And I would just also add that included in that is an effort to also hold this administration, President Obama, accountable, because we are very frustrated by the level of deportations being carried out by this administration, and it's fair for us to point out that we want to make sure that the policies of deportation are implemented in a way where we are not targeting those who are not a threat to this country. And so we want to make sure that the political dimension, in addition to the moral dimension and the economic dimension to this issue, are well represented today. So I want to thank We Belong Together. And again, let me add my congratulations to Gloria Steinem for lending her voice as someone who is an iconic figure for many of us as women leaders and women across this country. Her award tomorrow is something that is incredibly significant, and lending your voice today is something that we greatly appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Finally, I'd like to introduce our last speaker, Kristen Rowe-Finkbeiner, the Executive Director and co-founder of Moms Rising, which works with its more than 1 million members and 100 national partners to increase family economic security, to help ensure families, children, and businesses can thrive, and to end discrimination against women and mothers.
Thank you. It is both a deep honor and an inspiration to be here together with you all today. Moving. Anyone who's ever had a mom knows that moms can move mountains. We move them for our children, and we build movements to better our nation. And many moms also move across cities, across our country, and across the world to make better lives for our families. As was stated, I'm Kristen Rowe-Finkbeiner, the Executive Director of Moms Rising, an online and on-the-ground nationwide organization of over 1 million moms. And we are working to improve family economic security. But most importantly, I am a mom. And I'm here today because moms are at the heart of immigration reform. As you've heard many times from other speakers, 75% of immigrants are women and children. That is the heart of immigration reform. We know that studies show the majority of women are immigrating for family reasons also, including to reunite with family, to make a better life for their children, to escape oppression, discrimination, and violence that prevents them and prevents their children from living full and free lives. And as mothers, we absolutely know that we will do anything we can to ensure a better life for our children. However, too many immigrant mothers in our family, in our country, in our family that is our country, face almost insurmountable barriers. As Pramila said, most work visas are granted to men, not to women. There are huge backlogs of family visa applications, decade-long waiting periods for family reunification, and arbitrary waiting periods based on countries of origin. And the fact that our nation does not have a roadmap to earning citizenship, especially a roadmap that honors women's contributions and work, means that there are now an estimated 5 million children living in fear of being separated from their parents at any moment. We can do better. And as mothers, we know that we absolutely must do better for our nation's children. No child should ever have to live with this fear. Thankfully, we are all standing up together to change this. For example, along with the We Belong Together coalition, thousands of Moms Rising members have called on Congress to immediately pass immigration policy that keeps families together and that honors the contributions of immigrant women. We've rallied with our kids here in Washington, D.C., and we've met with our congressional representatives. We're going to keep it up because we know that together with the people in this room and also together with the people and the organizations across the country, we can move immigration policy forward. So let's not wait any longer. The mothers of our great nation call on Congress to do the right thing right now, to take action immediately to pass a comprehensive immigration policy that's fair to all women and that keeps children and families united. Because together we have the power. Together we can build a stronger nation. Together we must make that change, and together we know that we can indeed move mountains. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you all for coming. The speakers will remain for individual questions, and we'd like to close this portion of the press conference, and thank you for attending.
Thank you.
So I think you have an interview.
Washington Post.
Yeah.